All right, all right. Let me. I had a mishap. I had to restart it because I hit everybody by mistake. All right. I guess we have all of our ladies that are joining. All right. So I got to get somebody on mute. Okay, that's better.
Got him right on the camera.
All right. So everybody that is joining us on Facebook, YouTube, or here on our Riverside stream, welcome, welcome. We are about to begin very soon. Please come on into the room. Come on into the room. If you are in here, please like and share. Invite your friends.
That looks better. Yeah, I'm coming. You looking sexy now.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and kick this show off with the introduction.
You are now listening to Strength in Struggle, the podcast all about finding your light in the darkness, overcoming adversity, learning to heal after hurt, and most of all, finding yourself when others try to keep you hidden.
All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to Strength and Struggle. I am your host, Shakara, and I am so, so happy to be here today on such a momentous occasion, Veterans Day. Some of you don't know this about me, some of you do. I am a vet myself. Well, technically, I'm active duty still, but I'm a vet myself. I am serving currently right now in the United States Army, and I am an E7. I work for the United States Army Reserve as an AGR soldier. I retire in 16 months. Can't wait. Yes. So today I have three amazing women with me who are all also military women, Army vets, actually. Um, and I am going to give them a chance to introduce themselves so that they can tell you exactly who they are. And then we're going to have a one on one discussion about I am the veteran, not the dependent, serving as a woman in the United States military. All right. So, with that being said, we're going to go to Miss Genesis first for you to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Genesis McWhorter. I'm from North Carolina. I am right now. I'm in E6, but I'm also a cadet at the University of Michigan because I'm participating in the Army's Green to Gold program. So right now, I'm working on my master's degree in social work.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Michigan, listen, listen. We not gonna go there, but I'm gonna just say I am from Detroit. So as soon as I saw University of Michigan, I got a little excited because go blue. Listen, you know. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. Next, we will go to Miss Angela.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Angela Lowe. I am a retired Master Sergeant E8. I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but right now I reside in Stafford, Virginia. So this is probably going to be my home.
Nice, nice. Thank you so much. Next, we're gonna go to Dr. Rosetta.
Hi, I'm Dr. Rosetta Parker Austin. I am medically retired with the U.S. Army, and my husband and I, we reside here in the Augusta area with Fort Eisenhower, Go Signal, and I was a communications major. Currently, I'm a licensed professional counselor.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So, just wanted to go ahead and speak about something real quick. We're going to talk about some statistics, okay? I am not a numbers person, but I am a person about facts. And unfortunately, in the world we live in today, there are a lot of people that don't look at the facts. They look at their assumptions and they look at the things that they think is the truth in their eyes. Or as we like to say in the military, their what is it called? Perception, right? So let's go over some facts real quick. So, there are over 2 million women veterans in the United States, making up about 10% of the total veteran population. Women vets are the fastest growing group of veterans and are projected to make up to 18% of all veterans by 2040. That's what, in 14 years? Hmm. The median age of a woman vet is 51 years old, while the median age of a male vet is 65 years old. All that says to me is that we like to enjoy our youth and get out. Women veterans are more educated than male veterans, with 46% of women veterans having an associate's degree or higher. Mm. Women veterans are racially and ethnically diverse, with 43% of the women who used the VHA health services in 2020 belonging to a racial or ethnic minority group. Women veterans are assigned as a designated women's health provider to coordinate their care. And the VA provides comprehensive primary care, including gender specific care. In the VA, a study of 59% of women vets said they always get an appointment for mental health care as soon as needed. In 2021, The firearm suicide rate among women veterans was higher than 281.1%. I'm sorry, was 281.1% higher than that among non-veteran women. Hold on, I gotta scroll down. Women veterans are also increasingly starting their own businesses, and women veterans own small businesses as a growing economic force. I don't know about y'all, but that says a lot. That says a lot. Because when I see something like that, what it's telling me is that the female vets know how to handle business. What does that say to you all on the platform tonight when you hear those type of statistics?
The statistic that got me, because I'm in the mental health field, is the 281% suicide rate. Uh, that's concerning. And there should be something that this should be something that we're focusing on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Unfortunately, I've known some people who have, well, I will say who's no longer with us. And I do also know that when it comes to soldiers who have to go to mental health for suicide ideations or doing a CCIR and it's for suicide ideations, it's always, I'm not gonna say it's always women, but the percentage is higher for women. So while that is very shocking, because that's basically saying that us four sitting on this call right now in a room full of women who are non-vets are all possible suicide ideation or suicide victims possible compared to the other four women in the room with us. And that's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. But that's definitely a show that we have to eventually do with a lot of my mental health vets who are in the VA later on, because that in itself is a whole call, a whole lesson, a whole show, basically. But yes, that is very concerning, and I definitely agree with you. Anything else stood out to anyone in those statistics on the call?
I
Okay.
was going to say, to
Oh,
add
go
to
ahead.
that real quick. I just think, not that I was surprised by it, but it's just like, to put a number to it. Because when I think about like being women in the military, we're already a minority, and the things that we have to go through, like the rules aren't the same for us, and we all know that. And then when you add being a woman of color, particularly a Black woman in the military, um, it's definitely not the same for us. So I definitely think it's sad, but at the same time, because of the realities that we have to go through, I'm not surprised. And the fact that I'm not surprised, that's heartbreaking for me.
You bring up a good point too, because I've been dealing lately with a lot of people who say, I don't see what you see. I don't understand what you're trying to tell me. I keep hearing y'all, as they like to say, complain, and it's not complaining, but this is the things that's been brought to me. Complain about the rules are different for you. And I've always explained to people, especially being a leader, that you have to understand something. Your foxhole doesn't look like my foxhole. Your family doesn't look like my family. Your issues are not my issues. That does not make anything I am dealing with or I'm going through less significant because you don't understand it. If you are not a woman of color or in any minority group, how can you relate to something that we are dealing with? How does that affect you in any type of way? Rather put somebody else down or say it's not that serious or I don't see it. Sit down and try to get educated. What am I not seeing? What can I do better? Because if a lot of people actually take a step back and stop trying to tell a demographic that they shouldn't feel that way or we don't think that is that way, and try to understand by just looking at the numbers, I'm quite sure a lot will be fixed. But we already know That's basically like throwing a rock down a dark hallway. You never know where it's going to land. But thank you. I definitely agree with you on that. Um, so we are going to move into our very first question. I don't see anything coming from any of our lives right now for questions. And anybody that is on the live that's watching this, if you have any question for any of our vets that are online, feel free to ask. So the first question I'm going to ask is, what made you join the military, and do you regret that decision?
I joined the military. I went to college for a year, and then my dad was like, "No, you got to come back home and go to school." I've always been that person to where I wanted to be dependent, and they would always say, when I grew up, we was like, I can't wait till I get 18 to get out your house. So when they said I had to come back home to go to school, um, that was a no-go for me. I said I was going to join the Army. My dad didn't agree with that because he was a Vietnam vet, and he's been in, and he knew how women were treated. But I was like, it's different. So basically, I had to like sneak and join the Army. And no, I don't regret it. Like I said, I'm dependent. If you tell me that I can't make it or something I can't do, I'm definitely gonna prove you wrong.
Come on, sis. Listen, and that's my sorrow, y'all. But yes, come on with it. Thank you. Who would like to go next?
Well, I'll go next. I actually had a full ride to go to Dartmouth for nursing, and I was excited. And so then I changed my mind because my mom said, "No, I don't want you to go so far away from home." And so I went into nursing, and during the practicum portion, I was informed by my supervisor that I didn't have the compassion that it took to be a nurse, and that I might want to consider another field. And so I was like, you know what? My Uncle Jack, he was traveling the world with the Army. I'm going in the military. And so that's what made me decide to join the military.
Nice. Okay. Before we go on to, how do you say your last name? Is it McWhorter? Okay, before we go on to Ms. McWhorter, we just had another person that joined us. Um, and I'm excited about her too. I'm excited about everybody. But you know, the Army always shows up and shows out, but we actually got somebody, y'all, that is not from the Army. Go ahead, introduce yourself, Ms. Reynolds.
Hi, everybody. I'm so sorry that I'm late. I am Master Sergeant Micah Reynolds. I am in the Air Force National Guard in Columbia, South Carolina, but I am also a 13-year Air Force Reserve veteran. I switched from the reserves to the National Guard last year. So sorry I'm late, but I'm here.
These are the people for y'all out there that's watching. Them the people that's too good for us. When they go to the field with us, we're like, oh, for lunch we're having MREs, and this is an Air Force person. MREs? Where the Burger King at? They they get paid a hazardous pay to do duty with us. We are considered below them, but it's okay because they
Does it
defects.
help that I'm the defect manager?
They defects is the best.
I'm the defect manager.
Listen, and their housing. I used to live at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. When I tell you that housing, baby, I looked at this and I said, Army, I need y'all to get together. Get it together, because this is a mansion compared to what we getting. And I was only at E6, no, E5. I was E5 then. But I'm sorry, getting off topic. So Ms. McWhorter, so Ms. Reynolds, the question we're on right now is, what made you join the military, and do you have any regrets? So Ms. McWhorter, it's your turn. I'm sorry.
So what made me join? For personal reasons, my dad was in the military, and he was an E6 when he got out. So when I made six, that was like the whole reason why I wanted to stay enlisted, and why I'm commissioning now is more for me. And I don't regret it at all, because I actually got Germany as my first duty station. So like being from a really small town, I got to travel all of Europe. So for all, like, the dumb stuff that we have to do and the raggedy people that you meet, I got to travel and meet some really amazing people. So I don't regret that at all.
Nice. Thank you so much. Ms. Reynolds?
So I am born and raised military. My dad is retired Air Force as well. So this is the only life that I know. And I told myself when I first enlisted, the goal was to retire at a rank higher than him. And I'm almost there. I truly am almost there. But I wanted my children to see me do something great as a single mom. And in doing so, my kids have seen me deploy a couple times and everything. So I'm a legacy military kid. Military is all up and through my family. So it was only natural.
Understood, understood. Um, and I guess technically I should be answering the questions too. So, what made me join the military was my aunt and my son. I had my son at 18, um, because I didn't want to listen to mama that said stay away from them boys. I got pregnant at 17. I had my son at 18. And to my friends and to everybody else, I threw my life away because I wanted to go to Spelman University and I was supposed to do all these great things and I had to focus on being mom. So I went to college locally, and my aunt, shout out to my auntie Kathy, she did 20 years active duty as I don't remember what it used to be called, but it's a 42 Alpha now. It's the human resources sergeant. And she did 20 years. And that was, I always looked at my aunt like, that's the rich auntie. Because when Auntie Kathy came home to visit, she always had gifts for everybody and she always did different things. So I looked at Auntie Kathy like the rich auntie, and I said, I want to be the rich auntie one day. And not to mention, in high school, I did JROTC. So I already knew what the military looked like. So I made a promise that after I had my son, since I decided that this was my life now, I wanted to wait a year after he turned 1, and then I went into the reserves because I figured in my mind, I'm a mom. I don't have to worry about all that craziness they're telling me on active duty. Let me focus on my son. I ended up having more kids. Then I was like, reserves is not working for me. I'm having a hard time trying to do school. I'm in Detroit. This is not working. And so I decided to, I was talking to a sergeant one day and he said, hey, you ever heard of AGR? And I was like, no, what's that? And he explained it to me. I did the packet. I called the guy, and the guy was like, "You're not supposed to call me, but since you did," and he said, "You want to go to Niagara Falls or Arma, Oklahoma?" And then that's what I did. Um, Sometimes I regret my decision because it puts so much wear and tear on my mental health. It puts so much wear and tear on my children. But for the most part, I would say the bigger part of me does not regret it because the military instilled discipline into me that I instilled into my children. And the military showed me how I can be resilient. And it helped me enhance my resilience because I've traveled, I've PCS 10 times in my 21 years in the service so far. So I've lived in a lot of states. So it's been an experience. So I do not regret it, but sometimes I sit back and I'm like, I'm drained, y'all. So thank you for that. We have a question. Let's see. For everyone who has been out of the country because of the military, out of every country you've been to, which one was the safest as a Black woman? Also, which one did you have the best time in?
I'm gonna say I had the best time in Korea because what happened in Korea stays in Korea.
I've
Yes.
never been, but I keep hearing that. I gotta go before I retire. I gotta go. I gotta go.
But the safest one was in Puerto Rico.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think my favorite is Germany. Um, the food, the shopping, I mean, the camaraderie. You didn't have to worry about, but within us, like race problems. It's just different. Germans didn't like us, but they didn't like us as Americans. It wasn't because they didn't like you as a Black person or whatever. They didn't like us because we were Americans. But Germany was it. And I would say maybe Korea may have been my safest. I don't know. It's up in the air.
Okay.
I was gonna say Germany as well. Definitely safer because, like Miss Angela said, it had nothing to do with my race or even my gender. It just had to do with the fact that we were American. If there was an issue whatsoever. But probably my most fun time was Italy. I did an annual tour in Italy at Aviano. So I'll definitely say that's probably different than most guardsmen and reservists deal with. Almost every single annual tour I've been on in my 14 years has been out of the country. Almost every one of them.
Nice. Okay. And Ms. Porter, have you been to anywhere that you can think
Yeah,
of?
so I second all of that. I was in Germany for 4 years, and it's so cheap to travel everywhere because it's Central Europe. So I went to Ireland, Norway, and even the places like the last part being a black woman, like there are no black people in Norway at all. But those were some of the nicest people I met in my life because nobody cared what I looked like. When I went to Amsterdam, France, like no, everywhere I went, I honestly felt safer in a foreign country than I did being in from North Carolina. Because in Germany, I don't know how it was when y'all were there, but like we couldn't even carry pocket knives. So when you're stationed overseas, you have to abide by not only the host nation, but your military laws as well. So yeah, we couldn't carry pocket knives, but you didn't need to because nobody does anything over there. They mind their business. So I would tell everybody if you get a chance to go overseas, please do it.
All right, ladies. Well, thank you. Shout out to all of y'all that have been out the country. Unfortunately, I've never been. With my job as an AGR, if our unit does not deploy as a whole, we're considered the ones that keep the unit going. I didn't volunteered. I tried to sneak on people's rosters plenty of times, and they was like, "Oh, she AGR." So shout out to all of you all. Let's give you a round of applause for that one. All right. So my next question is, what advice would you give to a young woman wanting to join the military today?
Okay, I'll go. My advice would be to make sure that's what you want to do. Do your research, talk to someone that's been in, talk to somebody positive, because if you go somebody negative, they're going to tell you all the negatives that pertain to them, and they're not going to tell you how they got into that situation. And just like McWhorter said, like she travels, take advantage of everything, take advantage of the education. The soldiers now have more things that I had when I was in, and like more guidance, but just take advantage of everything. If you want to do 3 years or 4 years, to set you a base and then get out, then that's what you do. Do what's good for you. And if there's a job that is offered, don't take the job. That's not the only thing, and that's the point where you need to talk to somebody that's in. So if you want to you want a specific job, then you tell them you want that specific job, but just don't take anything.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Who wants
I
to
would
go
definitely
next?
have to co-sign that. I joined when I went in, the only thing to get me out to basic in a quick fashion, if you will, was to go into the career field that I am now. So in the Air Force, we call it an AFSC, an Air Force Specialty Code. So I work in services. So anything that has to deal with sustaining the life of the force, that falls under my wheelhouse. I'm currently the DFAC manager. But like she said, if that's not the job you want, don't let them coax you into taking it. You you run the risk of going open general, getting whatever they throw at you. But if you want to work in something specific and you're do it, wait for that job to come open. Wait. Especially if you're in the National Guard or in the reserves, because what they've changed is you can go and drill with your unit until your basic training dates come up. so you can get the feel of what your job will look like once you actually leave for basic and leave for tech school if it's not available yet.
Real quick for the next person to answer, I just want to throw that shade out there that y'all know that she's not from the Army, because usually we always say, what's the favorite thing? I just have a caveat off of that. She said, I want to piggyback. I was like, well, we know she ain't from the Army. I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
I'll
Next
go.
person.
I'm going to say, in reference to before you go into military, go online. Google is your friend. Google military job codes for the in the Army. It's called the MOS. Google that. Find out what they have to offer, because depending on what job it is, it may even offer you a bonus. It may offer you special incentives. So look up those job codes, look up the incentives. And then because I was a career counselor for a little while, I'm gonna say wait till the last week of the month before you go and to the recruiter's office, because uh, this is a little known secret. The recruiter that's short on their quota is going to be a little more willing to help you get the job that you want. So wait till the last week of the month. I probably shouldn't say that, but that's the reality.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We just got petty.
I want to say, piggyback on Dr. Parker, because also you got to make sure you read your contract. If you asking for something, make sure you read your contract, because when I joined, they said, you going to Korea, that's your first duty station. And I said, no, I'm not going to Korea, I'm going home. So they was like, well, you're not going to join? I was like, no, I'm not joining. They said, well, I'm going to call your recruiter. And I was like, well, call him. So they called him. He pulled me out. He said, well, what do you want for your first duty station? I said, I want a stateside assignment, and I want it in my contract. So I think it was like a Thursday or Friday, and they had to call the Chicago MEPS. And I went back on Monday, and they gave me the contract. I said, where does it say that I'm going to be stateside? And it said CONUS.
All right. McWhorter?
So yeah, I think everybody has said it. The one thing I would talk to somebody and ask them to be honest though, because I think I did not do my research and I just went with what the recruiter said. And while the military is, it can be great, it can also not be so great. And so I would try to find somebody who's going to be honest with you and not just say you this pipeline dream of, you know, it's so great for all of these different reasons. And it is, but just don't, because that's what happened to me. They told me it was going to be X, Y, and Z, and it was PDQ. So like, not to say that it wasn't good. I just wish that people would have been more honest with me. And then also find a mentor, because I feel like those are the people that really showed me what to do. Like there are so many things you can do in the Army, but if you don't know what's available to you, you just go through thinking like, well, this is what I have to do. And but yeah, find a mentor and talk to somebody who's going to give you the real.
And if I can come back, I'm going to say, make sure you get in shape before you decide you want to go to basic training, because ooh, that was a rude awakening from a kid that didn't exercise at all to now having to run 2 miles and do push-ups and sit-ups. You might want to get a start on that before you enlist, because it could be a quick, harsh reality.
Yes.
I was not a runner before I joined the military, and getting into basic, that was a struggle. Push-ups and sit-ups weren't too bad, but running as often as we did in the Air Force, that was hard for me because I'm not a runner. Mm-hmm. But to Genesis' point, find someone who's gotten in trouble. I know that sounds like a really way to put it, but find somebody who has gotten in trouble in their military career and ask them how they navigated through that discipline. Because if you are especially as a woman and a Black woman, they love to tell us we are outspoken and we have attitudes and things like that. And I had a drill instructor tell me, you have an attitude. And I said, no, sir, I don't. He said, you have one if I tell you you have one. And I had to remind myself I was still a trainee. I did not have stripes yet because I wanted to buck up on him and say, I don't know who you talking to, but that would have given him exactly what he was trying to get out of me. So I ate it. I ate it. But find somebody who's gotten in trouble and see how they navigated getting into trouble and getting to the point where they're at now in their military career.
Y'all get nuggets here today on Strength and Struggle. Y'all are getting real nuggets here today because this advice right here is advice I wish I would have had when I first enlisted. Because I'm telling you, that nothing that they have all said is not true. So if you are watching us right now and you are thinking about enlisting, even if you are a male, listen up. Listen up because you're getting real nuggets right here, okay? So
Can we come back to one more point?
yeah.
I would say if you are a female and once you join the military, travel with another female, even though you have male friends, because I found myself in a situation with a male friend that didn't work out favorably. So I'm just saying, even if you are a female, travel with other females. If you're a male, travel with other males. Don't just assume that because you're in the military that you're in a community where things can't happen. But if something does happen, say something and don't sit on it, because I think that's one reason why the suicide rate is so high, because women have to come out and deal with that after. So say something to somebody, and if the first person don't listen, go to somebody else.
Absolutely. That's definitely speaking as a previous SARC. Um, Nothing she has said is false. Nothing. Because the new military has gotten away from the battle buddy program. Okay. We used to have battle buddies, and that started the day you joined and the day you got off that bus, you had a battle buddy. That was your twin. Twin, where have you been? That was your person. And if your drill sergeant saw you without your battle buddy, you were in trouble. But for some odd reason, these days we don't think about that anymore. And the world is actually a lot more dangerous, and people think a lot more radical than they used to back in the day. And I hate always saying back in the day because these days, back in the day, to these kids can be 2000. But yeah, so definitely always keep someone with you and definitely speak up because, like I like to explain to my soldiers all the time, a closed mouth don't get fed. If you don't tell me that something is hurting you, if you don't tell me that something is bothering you, if you don't tell me that something just doesn't sit right with you, how can I fix it? Or how can anybody around here read your mind? If you feel uncomfortable talking to somebody, grab somebody with you and go speak to that person. If you can't talk to that person, there is always somebody else you could talk to. And that's just period point blank. So sorry, see, the E7 came out of me. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. Whew. Okay. So again, you guys are getting nuggets here today. Everything that the ladies are sharing is definitely spot on. So my next question is, have you or were you able to function as a mother, if you are a mother, and as well as continuing your education? I know we have a couple that have degrees. Actually, I think everybody on here got a degree um, of some sort. So everybody got a degree, but how did you function? How did you navigate that, especially if you're a mom?
So I joined 8 months after my oldest daughter was born. So at the time I had two children. I had my son and I had my daughter. Shoot, they made me go back and get re-pregnancy tested because I wasn't exactly 6 months postpartum when I first started the process. Um, and leaving them was hard, but I knew who I was leaving them with. They were in good hands. I left them with my mom. I came home after basic and stuff like that, and was home for about 6 months before I went to tech school, AIT, however you want to word it. And I went again, hard leaving my kids again and stuff like that. But it, I talked to them. I was able to talk to them. Every deployment I've been on, I have been fortunate where I can talk to them, during everything like that. But that um, first deployment was hard. My son talked to my son one time and he was crying. I'll never forget it. He was crying so hard I thought he was laughing. Like that's how hard it was. I thought he was laughing. And he's like, I just don't understand why you can't come home right now. I don't understand. He's very poignant in his talking. And my oldest daughter at the time, she wouldn't talk to me. She was really upset that I had left. Um, all of my kids, and I have four, 18, 15, 10, and 4, all of my kids have been through at least one deployment. The oldest two have been through all three. And it's been different each go around. And leaving them is a struggle, especially as a single mom. But I got my education done while being in the military. I got my in the Air Force we have what we call it's called a CCAF, Community College of the Air Force. So it's the equivalent of an associate's degree. So I have an associate's in what I do for the Air Force. So I have an associate's in hospitality and fitness management. And I got that in 2016. I then started, well, actually, I was still in the middle of undergrad at the time. I got my bachelor's in business in 2017. And then while I was deployed, the first time I went to Kuwait, I started my master's program completely online. And I finished my master's 13 months after starting. And I was still able to meet all of my military commitments, whether that was military schooling, work commitments, whatever the case may be. Is now what I will say, what makes it different for the Guard and Reserves from active duty is it's not that they can't go to school, they just have to prioritize. And a lot of times the supervisors will be like, get the expectations we have done first, I should say, and then we'll allow you to go to school, especially if you want to use your TA. Because as everybody knows, you have to have a passing fit score. You can't have all these things like that in order to use your TA because it asks you on the portal what's going on and your supervisor has to sign off on it. So that's where a lot of people can get slowed down a little bit is if you're not doing what you're supposed to do military wise, they'll be like, you can't go to school right now. But I've been fortunate they've not slowed me down for that. And I do military schooling. I did all of my professional military education um, in person or virtual, whatever they offered. So it worked out. Sometimes it lags a little bit, but it worked.
Thank you for sharing. Who wants to go next?
I'll go. Um, I didn't struggle as a mom. I had my first child. I was 7 years in the military, but I didn't struggle with it because I had a strong background. I mean, my husband was with me, and my husband handled everything. I have a girl and a boy. They're both in the military, in the Army. Um, I finished my education in the Army, and I also had some good childcare providers as well. But I didn't struggle at all because of my kids. Um, I may have struggled because of other things or other people, but I never struggled with the childcare part.
Thank you for sharing. Who wants to go next?
I would say I wasn't a mom, but at my very first duty station, I was fortunate to have a sergeant who said, every chance you get, make sure you take a continuing education class, make sure you sign up for college and take as many classes as you can. And so from the time I got in at my first duty station all the way through, by the time I finished with the military, I had already had my bachelor's degree. I had two associate's degrees and one applied associate degree. And I was able to, because I was able to use the tuition assistance while I was in the military. And then I was able to use my GI Bill for my master's program. And then I had student loans for my doctoral program. So I maximized every chance I got. And one of the beautiful things, Korea again, when you get deployed with the Korea, they would stop the classes until you came back.
Mhm.
And so when you finish your deployment, the classes pick back up. And that was with the University of Maryland and a couple of other institutions. So when you're in the military, take advantage of that opportunity to go to school as much as you can. Do what you're supposed to do in the military side, but go to school. And it helps you gain rank quick because you need those points.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. McWater.
Yeah, so I do not have kids, nor do I plan on having kids. But I will say, just from having soldiers who had children, some of them were single moms, some of them, or single dads, or they were dual military. I would say you can do it. Like, don't let your kids be an excuse as to why you can't get your education. Because I've seen it done, like I said, with single parents and with dual military. And then, like Dr. Rosetta said, for anybody, just use your benefits. I'm using my GI Bill right now the Army is literally paying me to go to school and get a master's degree at one of the top universities in the school in the globe. So, like, I'm not, you have to, the Army's going to take a lot from you, so you have to also take what you can and use it to your benefit. But no, I do not have kids, and I don't plan on having kids.
Thank you for sharing. It's the I do not plan on having kids for me. I agree with everything everybody said. Um, I I think I am. So it took me 20 years to get my bachelor's degree because I came into the military with my son. Then I had two more kids. Then I had my fourth child. And mothering was more important because I was a single mom. I you have to watch my other podcast to hear about the dramas of daddy's situations. But I was a single mom. So I moved across all of these different states with my children by myself. When they said, and mind you, I have two boys and I have two girls. They're 22, 18, 19, and 13 now. But when they said, my maiden name is Green. So they said, Sergeant Green, you're going to ALC. Your report date is Mother's Day. And I had just given birth to my daughter in December, and I got my report, my orders to report on January the 7th. Everybody was like, "Oh, you're gonna cancel. You're not gonna be able to make that right." Fortunately for me, that was back during the time where you didn't have to take a PT test if your school was under, I think it was 8 weeks or something like that. So I was like, that means all I gotta do is work out and lose this weight so I could pass height and weight because that's all you had to pass. I was breastfeeding my daughter. I pushed because they were expecting me to cancel. Everybody in my chain of command was like, "Oh, we'll do." I said, "No, I got it. I got it." Well, no, we don't want. I got it because one thing I know, I'm not telling y'all no because I need to promote and I need to get where I need to get because I got to take care of these babies. So I drove. At the time, I was stationed in San Marcos, Texas. I drove from San Marcos, Texas to Killeen. Shout out to my cousin Celicia. She kept one kid. My mom took my oldest kid back to Detroit. She flew down and came and picked him up. And then shout out to my cousin Tanisha, because I drove from Killeen, Texas to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and dropped off my daughters at the time, an infant and a 5-year-old. And I continued to mosey on. It took me 27 hours to get to Fort Lee, Virginia. I got there tired. It is Mother's Day, and I'm driving, dropping off babies. They weighed us in that Monday morning. And when they called us back in and said, "You're good to go," you couldn't tell me nothing else in the world. That was it. You could, because I did everything I needed to do because I knew that I could not fail my kids. So was it hard with kids? Yes, because I was a single parent. But just like Ms. Lowe said, having a good support system helped me get through it. And I have to give props to where they're due, and that is to my family because my family was there when dad was not there. So it was hard, but my kids wasn't the strain on me. It was the other stuff that was the strain on me. But I never told the military no. So when they tried to harass me about family care plans and make it seem like, your kids is a problem, I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, I got proof that I've never said I couldn't do something. So that's a whole nother conversation too about keeping your paperwork. But my kids were actually my strength through it. So once I got my degree in 2022, I was so excited. I felt like I had climbed Mount Everest because all of the failed grades, all of the withdrawals, all of the everything, because I kept giving up and I kept changing my major because maybe I should do this instead. So when I finally got my degree in 2022, I didn't stop. After I got my degree, I took a month off and then I started my master's. Then I got my master's in 2024, just got it this year, still didn't stop. I took a couple months off and now I'm in school for my doctorate. And everybody's like, Shakara, what are you doing? I said, doing what I always said I was going to do. It was delayed, never denied. So that's my little tidbit about kids and degrees and this lovely thing called the military. So we're gonna move on to our next one. Um, and I guess this is kind of we kind of talked about this a little bit already, but what would you have done differently? Because how many of you, well, everybody here except for, well, two are retired, and then the rest of us are still actively serving right now. But what would you have done differently from either the time that you enlisted or just during your time period being in from the things that you know now? What do you think you would have done differently?
I would have joined out of high school.
I
I
would have
waited.
went to sick call more.
As a VA representative that is not a person who processes claims, yes, go sick call for everything. Go sick call for everything.
You always in sick call, but guess what? My book by this thick right now.
Look, I didn't necessarily go to sick call for everything, but I got a lot of stuff. I have a lot of stuff. But I think I would have joined directly out of high school and started active duty. And then as I had kids, I think I would have transitioned to the National Guard or the reserves once I started having kids. I think that part I would have done differently.
That is one thing that I do tell kids when I do meet high school kids that's like, oh, you're in the military. I'm thinking about joining the reserves. And I tell them quick, fast, and hurry, stop. Are you going away to college? Well, no. Do you have a full-time job where you're making a decent amount of money? Well, no, not really. I just don't want to leave home. So let me tell you something. If you want to join and go active duty. Active duty tour is only 3 years. If you like it, you stay in and you continue on. If you don't like it, you get out. If you like it, but you don't want to do that anymore, then you can go to the reserves and the National Guard. But when you come straight in from high school to the reserves and National Guard, and you don't have any of those things going for you, and then after about 6 months, you sitting here like, this is boring. This is not what I wanted to do. I want to go active duty. Guess what? It's an act of Congress. It takes about 2 generals, I think, to sign off on you going active duty, and it is very seldomly approved.
I have 3 airmen who have been in barely a year who now want to go active duty because
Mhm.
this isn't what I thought it was.
Yep.
And I'm like, what did you think you were do? Then I also hear, well, I don't like my job. Again, you picked it or you agreed to it. So do your research.
Yep.
I don't remember which one of you ladies said do your research before. I think it was Miss Rosetta. I think you said do your research beforehand because Google is free. Yes. Look up those careers before you go in. And yes, active duty is a 3 to 4 year tour.
Mhm.
Do that. Do your first enlistment, and if you want to still do it, re-enlist. If you want to still do it but don't want to do it full time, go into the National Guard or the reserves.
Now, because Miss Rosetta is a former career counselor, then Miss Lowe is former drill sergeant. See, she didn't tell y'all that part. That's the drill sergeant, y'all. That's Miss Lowe. How tall are you?
5'4" on a good day.
She was that one. She was that drill sergeant. y'all already know you got that female drill sergeant that's short. That's like a little chihuahua. What are
That
you
would've
doing?
been
What
me.
are you doing? That's her. That's her right there. So
I just
from
want to say I wanted to be a drill sergeant in the Air Force. I did. And there was a time when they were taking reservists and guardsmen, but I didn't have the rank.
so from the point that we made so far about the join, if you're coming out of high school and you don't have things going for you, join active duty and then make a decision. As a former drill and as a former career counselor, would you all agree that that is a fair assessment?
Um, I would say if you plan to go to college, but want to go in the military, make sure you and the recruiter that you work with have an understanding that you want to go in as an officer. Do not go enlisted. You don't have to go enlisted. So make sure you don't get roped into being um, put in as an enlisted person when you have, especially if you got a degree. You went to college and you got a degree, or if you go into college and you want to be a cadet, there are programs where you can go to college and you don't have to pay. Just do your research. Please do your research. That's the one thing I regret. Uh, Even though my nursing thing didn't work out, I wish I would have studied and went into a different field and then went with the military. But um, it just didn't work out that way. And so I did think it worked the way God intended. And one of the things about being a career recruit, career counselor, is because, see, I was active duty, and a career counselor is really part of the AGR program. But because I was deployed with the AGR unit in Puerto Rico, I got to get career counselor certification, and so I became a career counselor. So take advantage of the opportunities, everything that presents yourself. And I will say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. I don't care where you're from, what your background is, what your belief is. Being kind will open doors for you, because the gentleman who his name is Jose Lopez Conchani, he adopted me in Puerto Rico, and he's the one that pushed to get me in the career counseling program, even though I was active Army, which was unheard of. So maximize your opportunities, and so even if things don't work out the way you intended, God will have the right people in the right place to put you in a path that you ultimately end up where you're supposed to be.
Absolutely. What's your take on that one, Miss Love?
Well, for the record, I am short, but I wasn't that type of rah drill sergeant unless you ask for it. But for me, as a drill sergeant, it wasn't all about that yelling and everything, because if you yell so much, people are tuning you out. So we had to teach the values, but my thing was, you really can't teach values. Those values, um, you have to have a little of it when you come in. So I just made sure myself and my drill sergeant had compassionate and showed soldiers that you care for them. And when you show people that you care for them, period, they'll go to the end of the world for you.
Yeah.
Regardless, they will go to the end of the world for you. If you act like snotty and yelling and all that other stuff, they don't lost all respect, because all only thing you can get them to do something because you're yelling. But yeah, I just made sure that I showed compassionate, and I treated those soldiers that I treated them like they were my kids.
Absolutely.
Now, if they did wrong, I still treated you like my kids. My kids' friends come over here, and I said, tell your mama you can stay, but let her know when you walk in the door, you belong to me. So whatever consequences you get, you get. And that's all.
Thank you. We have a question in the chat. It says, the military can have its rewards and stressors. How has the military challenged your mental health? And do you feel the military provides enough resources? Mm, that's a good one.
Can I answer that?
You sure can.
Um, so that right now, I told you I'm getting my master's in social work because my ultimate goal is to become a behavioral health officer in the military.
Mhm.
And for that reason, I'm actually glad I enlisted first and then I'm becoming an officer because, in my experience, a lot of officers are very out of touch with reality and they don't know what soldiers are actually going through.
Or
I came from
posting.
I came from Fort Cavazos, used to be Hood, and as big as that base is, I had to wait like 3 months to see somebody at the behavioral health clinic. So we don't have enough resources, and even still, like we have the military one source, but even with that, like you are only I think it's six sessions you can have with your counselor, and then that's it. So, and these are not, I don't know if they're licensed or not, but either way, like sometimes I feel like soldiers really only need to just talk and get stuff off of their chest, and we don't even have a space to do that. So, the military has definitely, I have been through so much in my 5 years of being enlisted and active duty. But we definitely have a lot of ways to go when it comes to actually providing people adequate mental health care. Specific emphasis on adequate.
Absolutely.
I'm going to say, in terms of mental health, it was hard, especially if you were a victim of MST, because there wasn't anywhere you could go. And I remember the one time, because I was a victim twice, but the first time I said something and I got reassigned. So the second time, I didn't say a word, and I still got reassigned. And it wasn't until I think 2012 I actually ended up having to deal with the trauma of it, and it was my husband who brought it to my attention. He was like, "Something's wrong," and that's when I went and got mental health. But when you're in and you have a security clearance, because the job I had a security clearance, you can't necessarily, well, you can go, but it's not recommended that you go, especially if you plan to keep your security clearance. And so what I tell soldiers now is, if you're active duty, go to the vet center, because it's outside of the military base and it's outside of the military system, and they will see an active duty soldier and they will get you in, because when you are on post and when you're in the military system, security clearances and mental health, they don't necessarily go together. That's just the sad reality of it, especially if you want to keep your job, or if you're trying to make rank and you have that flag, and because the military has this spreadsheet that they have, and if you got the wrong codes in the wrong places, that's not favorable. And that's why I just encourage people to use the vet center. Don't sit and suffer in silence. Go to the vet center.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to chime in?
Um, it's definitely changed my mental health. Um, I have been put in some experiences um where it wasn't until I have an episode, if you will, that I realized that there is something actively going on with me. And we do our suicide prevention, stuff every single year. And this was the first time when my unit did it that I openly admitted that I deal with mental health related issues, but I'm in therapy and I also take whatever I need to take for it. And how I had to remind myself that I can't perform my job adequately if I'm not okay. That's both in the military and out of the military. I can't perform it the right way if I don't. But to both of their points, there's only but so many resources.
Mhm.
I know in the National Guard and in the reserves, we end up having to go to an active duty base for care when it comes to these types of things, especially if something happens on like a drill weekend. Um, my base doesn't even have a military treatment facility because it's so small. So everything we do, we either have to go to Fort Jackson or we have to go to Shaw. And sometimes Fort Jackson won't help us. So you run into those types of issues and stuff like that. So there is still a stigma if I report that something is going on with me, am I going to lose my clearance? Are they going to put me out? That stigma, I don't think will ever truly go away, no matter how much they encourage us to talk about what's going on. So that's why I press people, go to sick call. If something is going on, go to sick call. Please do. Because they have no choice but to listen to you. They really don't. Talk to your chaplain, talk to your first sergeant. Um, because those are their jobs to help you navigate it at the lowest level possible.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Okay. So, you guys heard a couple of good resources that were just put out there. The Vet Center is one resource that we all have. Military One Source is another source that we all have. And both are not specific to a certain branch. It is military wide. Um, if you are any type of military affiliated person on this call, if you are watching us, if you hear our voice and you do not have a Military One Source account, today I challenge you to go and set you up an account, because outside of mental health resources, there are other resources that are provided for our servicemen and women. So that is one of the main resources I know I always try to share with soldiers. Um, and when this podcast is put out, I will be sharing more resources, Operation Homefront. The VA is also a resource, but the VA, you have to be active duty or you have to have a DD 214. That was a hard lesson we had to learn because we had reserve soldiers who needed assistance, but we were not near an installation. And we tried to take them to the VA, and the VA would not see them because this is a 19-year-old kid that just got a basic training AIT. They don't have a DD-214 because they haven't done anything but the reserves. So that's another nugget for you if you don't know it. And then another resource is the MFLAX. If you are not familiar with what an MFLAC is, an MFLAC is people who are counselors. And they are, I don't know if the Air Force or the other branches have this, but I know in the Army we have MFLACs. Oh, Air Force does have it. Okay. They are counselors who have the same capabilities like chaplains and your therapists, where it is confidential unless you are, we already know the whole spiel. If you're going to hurt yourself or somebody's being hurt or sexually assaulted, all those key points, but they are confidential. The MFLAX, I know reserves side of the house, people don't think that you have an MFLAC, but you do. Um, in the different ESCs, there is usually an MFLAC assigned. If you do not know who your MFLAC is, ask your S1. They will get you their information. Active duty, they have MFLACs. MFLACs, I'm not sure exactly where they are located at. Most likely, probably the Army Community Service Building. But if not, reach out to your chain of command. But the MFLAC is another resource that you can have if you just need someone to talk to. Sometimes it's just a conversation. And like I try to explain to my daughters all the time, sometimes we just need to cry. It's okay. It is okay. It does not make you less of a person. It does not make you weak. Sometimes you just have to let it out. And sometimes you just want to have a conversation so you can have a dialogue of, am I looking at this wrong? Did I understand this right? Is it me? Is it them? So those are just some of the resources. Am I missing any resources anybody else wanted to share before we move on to our last question?
I would say, because I am a state licensed counselor, if a person is in the military or out of the military but don't want to use a military resource, go online, Google your state's local counseling association, because a lot of us do pro bono counseling for fellow vets. So just reach out, and some of us have sliding scales, some of us have reduced scales, but reach out to your local counseling associations through your state, and they could be a great resource for you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. All right. So, this is going to be the fun question now. And since we're winding down to our last 30 minutes, it should be a very fun conversation. What was your experience working with male counterparts in a male-driven profession? I see the faces. I see the look.
I want to go first. I want to go first.
Okay, go ahead.
Aside from two bad apples, I had the best time working with because I was in a male field, and at the time I didn't know because when it said transportable automatic switching systems operator, I thought, oh, cool, that means it can go from place to place. I didn't realize it was on the back of a truck, so I found out that later. That's why you want to read. But I was the only female in my class for a long time. And then it took about 3 other cycles of AIT for another female to come in. But I tell you what, I am still friends with those guys that I went through AIT with, my bestie, Brooks and Jordan, lifelong friends. And they are amazing. And those guys will go to bat for me. Matter of fact, when we just had our hurricane here in Augusta, same crew. Sergeant Dockery reached out to me here. I retired in '89 now. No, 99. Reached out to me and said, "Hey, buddy, what can we do?" 36 people stick together. I'm telling you, they were amazing. Aside from those, I love the guys that I worked with. They were amazing.
I love to hear it. I love to hear it. Anybody else want to share their experience?
So I'm in a 50-50 career field as a cook. You got a little bit of, you have men and women in our career field, but you tend to see men in some of the more leadership roles, if you will. So that's where it can get a little bit tricky. But in the lower enlisted ranks, it's a little bit of both. And for my unit now, we're female heavy. So for the couple of men that I have, I think that they feel slightly like I don't know what to do, all these girls. But I've run into the situation where, depending on their cultural background, working with men can be a little bit challenging because they're not used to a woman being in a position of leadership. So I went from being the food NCOIC at my old base to the DFAC manager and dealing with male airmen, trying to get them to understand, I know what you want, but I need you to look at it from this point of view. So I've had to reel in a couple. I had one young man, he was hoping to get promoted right away, and I was like, "You're not ready yet." And he felt very defeated because I wasn't even technically his direct supervisor. I was his supervisor's supervisor. And so what I did is I'm like, "Why do you want to get promoted?" And not that his reason was wrong, but he wasn't getting to where he wants to be the right way. So I wrote him a development plan. I said, "This is what I want to see from you before I will sign off on you becoming the next rank." And he did that and he crushed it. And when he put on when he graduated from Airman Leadership School, I was there and I pinned his staff sergeant while we were deployed. So I pinned his E5 for him while we were deployed. I said, "I told you you could do it." He's like, "Yes, ma'am, you did." I said, "I want you to think before you act. Because 9 out of 10, what you're asking me, you're already answering it." And when I left my unit, it was very, very emotional because my supervisor is prior Army at the time. And he was like, "Y'all are talking about you're losing an arm, you're losing a leg." He's like, "I'm losing my head because she's leaving." Every single person in my unit, on my side of the unit, I had either been their supervisor or had taught them something. And it was really hard leaving my people like that. It was really, really hard. And then coming into the unit now, I told them, I was like, "I'm going to advocate for y'all. I can't do that if you don't tell me what's going on." And I tell it especially to my female airmen. Not that my male airmen are unable to do it, but for my female airmen, I was like, "I know we can get really quiet because we don't want to be labeled a certain kind of way." I was like, "But for my men," I was like, "when you are going through something, if you don't call me, I can't get you the help that you need." And so I've been very fortunate that I'm building an amazing relationship with my airmen because Some of my airmen, I'm old enough to be their mom. They're that young. They are literally a year older than my son. I'm like, I'm old enough to be your mom. I was like, but I don't want to look at you like you're one of my kids because you are an adult. So working with men has its pros and its cons, especially on a deployment and stuff like that. But I've been fortunate that I haven't had too many instances of resistance. Most of them have been very receptive.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That's an amazing story. Y'all gonna make me tear up tonight, but okay, I'm sorry. Who's gonna go next?
I'll go. So I've had a little bit of both. I feel like when I came in as a specialist because I had my degree and I only had male NCOs from like the first couple of years of me being in the military. Um, and I had no issues. Like they would always push me in during PT, I actually told one of my male NCOs, like, when we got out the military, I'm gonna fight you because he just had the worst mouth. But we had a really great work relationship and like he really pushed me and I really appreciated that. But I feel like when the tables turned and I became an NCO, that's when things like went out the window. And I feel like soldiers meant I would surpass people who were my peers. So I got promoted ahead of my peers. And there was one soldier in particular who I ended up being his NCO. And everything was just like he didn't want to do it. And so I feel like there is such a double standard when it comes to women and men in the military, particularly like Micah was saying, because I've been told like in basic training, one of my drill sergeants told me that I had an attitude, and I was like, I'm just talking. Like I'm assertive, but I don't have an attitude, and there's a difference. And what I feel like is just that you're insecure and you just don't know how to handle assertive women. So I definitely feel like it's not everywhere, but I feel like especially when you're at like a force com base where it's all men. I was at a CAV unit. That's where I was at in Fort Cavazos. And so like being in those types of environments, it's just different. So I feel like we have to carry ourselves a different way and we shouldn't have to, but you almost have to do that if you want to just like get through the day without having to be out, not in tears, but like if you really just want to make it through the day, sometimes you just have to just do what you got to do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Now I will come back and say, oh, this is Rosetta again. While my counterparts were amazing, when I was the NCO, uh, some men had a challenge with a black woman being in charge of them, and I'll never forget one actually sliced my tires. um, yes, he sliced my tires, and I was like, okay, but you just can't come out of character because they're waiting on you as a black female. They are already labeling you as loud, difficult, and just a problem. So you can't be loud, difficult, or a problem, but you still have to maintain your military bearing and address the problem and deal with those things as they come. There are some nights you will go home crying, and that's just the reality of it all because they are just not taught to deal with black women. But some people, because some reason, you got to remember, in the military we have people from everywhere, so some may have never encountered a black woman, and that could be challenging. So, but you got to know who you are and whose you are, and still do what you got to do, and just try to remember that a few bad apples, they're not everybody. Some people are going to support and do what you tell them to do as because you're the NCO, and some people are just going to challenge you, and that's just the inherent. That's just the ugly truth of it. Because at the end of the day, they see a black woman, they don't see an NCO. So that's just the way it is.
Thank you. Ms. Lowe?
Okay, for me, if you was on at the beginning of this podcast, I didn't really have problems with no type of male because I set the tone from the get-go. Like if I'm in charge, I'm in charge. I'm not going to tell you to do anything wrong. And if you question me, I'm taking you right to the regulation. I had a first sergeant that came in when I was a drill sergeant. He came in and he was like, "Well, what are you supposed to do? This, and that." But I knew he was being, arrogant or whatever. And he asked me a question, and I said, "I don't know, first sergeant. Didn't you read it? I know what I'm doing. You don't quite come up here questioning me because I know what I'm doing. But do you know the regulation?" But it's all about treating people with dignity and respect. And yes, there are men out there that they're not used to a woman telling them what to do. But I just tell them, well, I'm running things up in here. When you get home, you run things over there. So, like I said, I didn't have those issues because I set the tone.
Well, thank you. So, mine is the same as all of y'all's. Got you good, got you bad. So when I came on AGR, I was an E4. And of course I'm gonna leave units and names out of this because that's the way we keep it copacetic. So back then in 2006 when 2007 when I was trying to go up for the board, um commander still gave you 150 points, up to 150 points for your promotion board, right? It was me and two other male soldiers. One of the male soldiers joined the AGR program a week before me. Him and I were both E4s together in the same section. We were both the training NCOs. The other one was an E5 maintenance NCO. The commander gave both of them 150 points max. He gave me 75. When I asked, and this was a Black commander, the man used to always give me hell. Like he would literally do and say things to me, and he would sit back and look with this look like, I want you to say something. And it was hard because in my mind, I had a lot of words going in my mind. My face, which I had to work on that through my 20 years in, my face would tell you the words that was in my mind, but my mouth wouldn't say it. And so my first sergeant, rest in peace to him, he told the commander, I disagree with what you're doing because it's not a reason why you're giving her less than them. You're hurting her because you know she needed 150 points before she can even go to the board. They don't even need it. He ignored them. The guys went to the board. They both failed that board. When those guys went to that board, again, I'm the type of person to where when you tell me I can't do something or when you try to tear me down, I'm gonna show you better than I could tell you. I did everything I needed to do for correspondence courses and everything else because I wanted to make sure when that next board came up, but I didn't even need his points. Because in my mind, now I got to show you better than I could tell you. Because what you're not going to do is have me feel like because I'm not in the boys club that I wasn't good enough. So when it came back up, I guess the first sergeant got through to him. He ended up giving all three of us 150 points. We went to that board. You know how they give you the packets afterwards to tell you what you scored and everything else. The sergeant major, who was the president of that board, he said, I was extremely impressed with you and you're going to be somebody. I'm not supposed to tell you this, but you scored the highest out of everybody on this board. We came back and I didn't gloat, but I was able to look that commander in his face because he had gotten this report and smile because at this point you tried to stop me or you tried to make them a higher rank than me for some reason and you didn't stop anything. Now, another instance, fast forward to now I'm a sergeant. Now I'm in charge of people. Some people that's watching this is probably going to be like, this is, now we see why Shakara is so standoffish to people, or why she's the way she is about certain things. So I was stationed in a place and I was put in charge. The first sergeant and the commander were both deploying and they sat me down. They said, hey, we need you to be the acting first sergeant. I said, no. They were like, unfortunately, you are the highest ranking person left here. The commander that's coming in is going to need a strong first sergeant. You are the AGR. You need to be her first sergeant. I said, so let me get this straight. because I looked at the demographics here before. They never even had a female in charge as a commander, let alone a Black person in charge. Now you want a female who is a lesbian to be in charge as the commander, and then a Black female to be the first sergeant. It's not going to go well, sir. I don't think this is a good idea. They told me I'm doing it, so I did it. And with me, if my name is on something, I'm going to do it to the best of my abilities. The boys club, who were very upset because it was a Black woman in charge, and they called me everything but a child of God. They called me, of course, the N-word. They taunted me to soldiers. My soldiers would come to me and they're like, Top, I don't know what's going on, but we were told that we don't need to listen to you because you think you're running something and you just the HNIC. That's what they called me. And I had to process this. I was going home every day for my hour drive back crying because, again, I have to have a strong face in front of these people, and I have to still lead you knowing that you are not just disrespecting me, but you're trying to belittle me. It ended up getting to a point where they were threatening my well-being. These are male soldiers who were just upset because a Black woman was put in charge of them. I had to be moved out of that unit, and a whole EO investigation was founded, and done, and it was founded that all these things were happening. They moved me, and all of them kept their jobs and still got promoted. The mental anguish that I dealt with. I was diagnosed with PTSD behind everything that they did to me. I used to have nightmares days on end. Like it was insane because it is hard to be that woman who is strong and independent and fierce. I like to say that I'm fierce. I tell people that all the time. But you feel so small because I have to shrink myself to make other people feel relevant, or shrink myself so that I don't come off as abrasive, like they like to tell me. I'm abrasive, I'm aggressive, I'm loud. Oh, she's just a ghetto girl from Detroit. Now I get to tell them I'm a ghetto girl from Detroit with 2 degrees. What are you going to do now? That was a struggle for me. I've had places where I've had male counterparts who's just like, nope, she in charge. She got it. She knows it. And we worked well together. But unfortunately, just like you all have shared, there are some who still just can't get it through their head that this is a different army. This is a different military. This is a different world. Women run things now too. Women are on the opposite side of the fence with you. I mean, not the fence, the couch with you, the table with you. Women are sitting right there with you now. And you're going to have to either get with the program or get out. But it becomes difficult when you have the good old boy system and they're in charge and they like to continue to try to keep the good old boy system intact. So that's my little spiel on it. So we don't have any other questions in the comments. I will ask you ladies for your last thoughts that you would like to share for the good of the group or for our listeners. And we will start with Micah.
So my last point is talk to somebody about financial advice as soon as you join the military. Get your TSP and all that stuff started as soon as you go into basic. And even if you only contribute 1% of your paycheck, 1%, start it. And I wish somebody has told me that when I first joined the military versus when I was a couple years in, because I think I would be better set right now. It is okay to get outside of your base and meet people. Take every opportunity you can. Even if that means you're going on a deployment by yourself with people you don't know, take it. Take it and run with it and enjoy it. Enjoy your military career to the best of your ability. Don't let anybody take it from you. Get to navigate with the rest of the branches. Again, one of my best supervisors is Prior Army, and I love that man to death. Love him absolutely to death, and thank him for everything. And I thank him for everything that he taught me. And the nugget I take from him is he's been calling me Chief Reynolds since I was an E3. And while I may not make it to E9 in my career field, knowing he saw that for my future as an E3 means the absolute world for me. So know who you can trust, know who you cannot trust. Do not allow what they say about you to be who you are, because at the end of the day, all you have is your name. I am Master Sergeant Micah Reynolds. I am a legacy Air Force veteran. And I hold that so near and dear to my heart. And my dad has not been able to attend a single military thing that I have done, but my dad is beyond proud of where I've gotten to.
Thank you so much for that. Oh my goodness, that was powerful. Dr. Rosetta.
First, I want to say thank you, Shakara, for having me on your panel. I am honored and humbled. So thank you. I would say if you are in the military and you are getting out and you do not plan to retire, but you plan to enter the federal workforce, as soon as you enter the federal workforce, buy back your military time because that will count towards your retirement time in the federal sector. Don't wait and say, well, I don't know that I'm going to stay or whatever. Buy back your time from the very first day you get in there because the only thing that happens is it keeps accruing interest. And so if you change your mind later, you would have paid more later than you would have paid up front. So buy back your time. That's the first thing I would say. If you don't retire and joining the federal workforce, which I highly encourage everybody to do. Join the federal workforce if you retire, if you're getting out of the military and not retiring. Join, because it's nothing like 2 paychecks. I'm 2 years away from that. Hey! And the second thing is while you are in the military, travel, see the world, because and then I would say go back home, find that one person that you can take and take them on travel with you because some people will never leave home unless they know that there's more out there. And so go back, pour into your nieces, your nephews, your cousins, your children, and take that one person with you and let them see there is a world waiting to be conquered while you're traveling, because that gives you somebody to travel with, and that's another way of giving back. And the last thing I would say again is thank you, Shakara, and God bless you. And I am Dr. Rosetta Parker Austin, U.S. Army,
Yes, ma'am.
and soon to be federal retiree.
Thank you so much, Miss Lowe.
First, I want to thank you, Soror, for this opportunity. I also saw that you were a fellow Capricorn. When
I am.
it's coming up next month, so y'all get ready. We end the year and begin the year. But I would say to the young soldiers, especially the young females, to make sure that you find another female that of rank, and just try to like feel them out and ask them could they be your mentor. Look up to them for help. I don't know. I didn't know they got rid of the buddy system, because when I was in, we didn't have the buddy system. But as a female and being a minority female, we just automatically click. When one moved, the other moved. If you was in the club and somebody talking about you going off with this or that person, oh no, you wasn't going off with that person. You going back to the barracks with us. So find somebody that you can click with, because I have friends that I have been like over 30, 40 years that we're still friends. My drill sergeants follow me up here. I'm in the MDW area in Virginia. They follow me up here. I have one, she lives down the street from me. So just find you somebody that's going in the same direction as you are and click with them. And I mean, speak up. Don't be scared to speak up. If somebody says something, out of bound, get loud. What, they can't write you up because they done did wrong too. So they're gonna get in trouble too, right? So, but anyway, thank you. And I enjoyed this podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we will go to you, Ms. McWhorter.
Yes, so real quick, I'm also a Capricorn, so shout out to y'all. I would say, just like Master Arlo said, find not just somebody who is your peer, but a mentor. I don't know what I would have done without mine. She is a retired first sergeant, Helena N. Taylor. I don't know the thing that I want to tell y'all, she told me she didn't want me to be like her. She wanted me to be better than her. And that really resonated with me, because all skin folk, not kinfolk, and people will see that you are doing well and they will do everything to suppress your light. So have discernment when it comes to finding a mentor. And then the second thing, one of my other mentors told me, is be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's the only way that you grow. I think a lot of times we want to do things that are like that feel good, but that's not the way you grow. So just know that it's tough, but that's the only way that we're going to grow and grow together. So, and thank you so much for having me, Shakar. I really appreciate this.
Thank you. Thank you. So before I do my closing remarks, I do have to shout out because, McWhorter, are you a part of D9 too?
I'm a finer woman. Yes, I am.
Okay. Yep. I had to make sure I shout out because I forgot, and I am so sorry. But our conversation was so good tonight, it made me forget. But we do have to shout out our D9 military members today. We have 2 SG roles on this call, and we have 2 Zeta Phi Beta members on this call. And I would just like to say that in itself is a lot, because when people look, like in my office, they look and they're like, "What's all this blue and gold?" It's my sorority. Well, what's that? It's my sorority. So when people don't want to, if they don't understand something, it's a problem to them. So thank you all, because being in any type of organization and still serving in the military is hard in itself. But being in a predominantly Black fraternity and sorority while still wearing the uniform or have worn a uniform before is also a struggle within itself. So I would like to definitely shout out D9 for showing up and showing out today for me on this podcast, because I was nervous, but you guys just like always, it's like home. Once you start talking, it's the military women, we come together, military period, we come together and we have a understanding. But when you add military and then you add the D9 world in it, it's not about colors, it's about the mission. We are there. Do you understand me? I would like to say thank you to each and every one of you. You all definitely showed up tonight and you shared some of the most deep thoughts that a person, I learned from you all. But we have women who are retired. We have, and I'm gonna call you young, McWhorter. I don't even know if you're young, but you're gonna be young tonight. We have our youngest member on here who is right now going I'm stuttering, going to become an officer. So she green to go. That might not be what she's doing, but still. And we have our Air Force on here. The fact that we were well-rounded helped this conversation along. It helped make it real. And I'm hoping that anyone listening to our voice, listen to my voice right now, and who listened to us tonight can take what you need from this. If there was anything that was in this podcast that you can't use, then leave it where it is. But if it's something you can use, take it and make it your own. That's all I can ever ask of you. Again, I would like to say thank you, ladies. You guys were amazing. And I look forward to the next time. Let me go ahead and get ready to outplay this. And then I do want you guys to stick around for me for a little bit.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Strength in Struggle.
Ladies, thank y'all so much. Oh my goodness.